Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm looking at the Harley Davidson Fat Bob in matte black. The Harley Davidson has a Milwaukee 8114 engine that has a 1868cc displacement. It's liquid cooled, putting out 92.7 horsepower. It has a massive doorknob size suspension adjustment for preload. It runs a single seat with what I will call an occasional bench for a passenger. I think the only aftermarket bits on this bike are those S&S slip-ons for the 2-to-2 exhaust. Has a nice open wheel. The wheel in the back is 180 millimeters with a very close 150 millimeter wheel on the front. Big fat wheel. Inverted forks. Great paint job. Very simple, minimalistic display. Nothing up on the handlebars except for the instruments and the levers. Very clean, streamlined look. And from the first glance, the instruments don't look as cumbersome or as unmanageable as past Harley Davidsons. Another first impression is the finish and the construction of this bike. Everything seems very, very tight and well constructed, and a lot better in terms of quality than I'm accustomed, even on a Harley Davidson. Now, Harley Davidsons always draw some attention of passers-by, and this kind couple talked to the owner of this bike for a good 10 to 15 minutes while I was standing with my helmet and gear on, getting ready to go. And after a good, lively conversation, we finally hit the road. Hey everybody, it's Dick here. I don't know if you can hear me over these loud motorcycles, but I'm on a brand new Harley Davidson Fat Bob. And what makes that more special about being on this Fat Bob is it's the 4th of July today. So loud. I got the Royal Enfield in front of me and I'm riding this Fat Bob, so I can hardly imagine what the audio is like on this thing, but I'll try and talk loud enough for you guys to hear me. My immediate thought is, it's a big bike. I mean, it's an odd sensation riding a Harley Davidson. It's a unique sensation riding a Harley Davidson. Your feet are out in front of you. I forgot what it was like to ride a bike with your feet out in front of you. I mean, I have a bike that has forward controls, but it's pretty disorienting. And these wide, almost straight bars are I don't know what they are. This thing is just all engine. It's a lot quieter than your standard Harley Davidson. It doesn't have that kind of brap, 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 brap. Very modern. It's very high-tech, this thing. It sounds a lot lower. The tone is a lot throatier, but not, it's not throatier. What's the word? It's like a baritone. And there is this almost Honda Africa Twin kind of whine to it. Just turned off the things. I just turned on the indicators. Can I turn them off again? Yeah. Yeah, it's a bass, and it's all under your ass. I mean, the engine is between your legs, but the sound is, or the feel is right under your ass. It's right at the front of that back wheel, and you're sitting in this bike, and you're sitting behind it. I haven't done a lot of twisty turns on this as yet, but I almost feel like I'm riding on a rail. Everything's black and matte and mean. If I turn my head and I hear that sound, it's almost like you're on a battleship. The engines of a massive machine kind of constantly there. There's not a lot of range in the noise. You feel the feedback from the engine in terms of where you need to shift in the RPMs, but it's not a You can probably hear the Enfield in front of you. It's very much like wee 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 wee. It kind of goes through the octaves to tell you what to do. This is all one low note. One low note. Turn signals are on different. That's funny. That's funny, the turn signals are on the different controls here, and you have to get used to using your right and your left. Man, this thing is powerful. It doesn't feel fast though, but you're up to speed fast. It's kind of a slow feeling fast. I know I'm going fast, but I don't feel like I'm going fast because there's a lot of just solid weighted power. Wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, a cruiser is a straight line, kind of sit back and ride, but I mean, there's speed here. The wind is just so heavy on my chest. You're kind of happy that you get these wide bars because you got to hold on for dear life. You're kind of happy to be going under 60. You could totally barrel this thing, but you're just taking it in the chest. You're just taking it right in the shoulders and the chest. And I don't know if it's, I said it feels better having the wide bars to hold on to so you're not blown off the back of this thing, but maybe the wide bars are making you bigger, like a big sail or a big kind of umbrella or a windbreak. Kind of going 60 and I'm getting just beaten in the chest. Can't complain about the power or the handling. It's a big fat front tire on this. It's like the front tire on this is fatter than the rear tire on the Enfield, so, or the rear tire on most motorcycles. Solid brakes. The vibration is, they've really solved the vibration issues with the Harleys. I mean, there's a little bit of buzzing in the handlebars, but it's not an issue at all. This is a all-day cruiser. Everything is really well appointed, really just high. There were some people who were arguing with me about the comment I made on the Honda review saying that Honda wasn't a premium brand, and I really think the distinction of a premium brand can be seen in the fit and finish of a Harley Davidson. The Harley Davidsons are just, the tolerances are just so close, they're so tight, they're just so perfectly machined and constructed. Oh, it's a bit of a pig around that corner. I have to make sure I keep my eyes on the road because I keep looking down at the attention to detail here. Yeah, it's a bit of a pig. I guess that's what they call it, a hog, but I'm getting some interesting vibes around 3,000 RPMs in the handlebars. A bit more than I'd expect. It's a comfortable seat though. There's a bit of lumbar support and it kind of, you're sitting in it. But I was saying you got to keep your eyes on the road because you're looking at all the attention to detail on this bike. It's a very pretty motorcycle. I'm getting used to the foot controls. The brake pedal though is interestingly very slick. It's got a kind of powder coated finish and my foot's, it's a dry day, but my foot's kind of slipping off it. And these pegs kind of have your feet out, so you got to really kind of pivot on your knee to get into that brake pedal. I also would have expected kind of a heel-toe shifter on this thing. Interesting. This doesn't have platforms. I just noticed that. It's a big fat cruiser, a big heavy cruiser, but it's got foot pegs and a gear selector that's just for the toe. That's a unique design choice. It's interesting. The headlamp is a little sculptural and kind of integrated, almost Ducati style, into the triple trees, the tops of the forks. There's foot pegs instead of platforms and these kind of sport toe shifter. There's like sporty elements and there's cruiser elements. It's kind of like the big brother of the V-Rod. Back when the V-Rod came in, they were trying to make kind of a sporty cruiser. And it looks like this is kind of the evolution of that. It's not as narrow as the V-Rod, but it's not as wide as other Harleys I've ridden. Self-canceling turn signals, so if you can remember that the turn signals are side-specific, they'll turn themselves off. Also, they've really done a great job in streamlining these controls. It used to be, with my tiny little Donald Trump hands, that I could never get down to the indicator buttons. And I was always turning the bike on and off as well when I was trying to signal right or left. The power is like immediate. It's like a switch. I gotta learn how to roll on the accelerator on this thing because, you know, it's very sensitive. You can go on, off, on, off, on, off. So you gotta really finesse it because there's just so much power that's immediately available. The handling is a bit odd. I feel like if I give any input into the handlebars to try and steer the bike, that really big fat front wheel is overreacting. It's exaggerating my decision. The weight is so low. It's so well balanced, really down low. I don't know if you hear that kind of triumphy, Honda-y weir, that kind of... It's odd. It's not until you get kind of to about 1,500, 2,000 RPMs do you start hearing that kind of Harley noise. It's very subdued for a Harley engine. But I mean, it's all there. It's like it's there if you want it. Interesting. It's more refined. I think that's it. This is a very refined Harley Davidson. It has a less mechanical feel than the Harleys I've ridden in the past. It's actually quite pleasant. Ooh. That was an ugly curve. The low weight though and the low pegs makes me think that I'm gonna scrape something. I mean, I'm relatively high, I guess. The seat is just scooped into this bike, so you feel like you're riding lower than you are. We're out in the country, but we're riding in traffic, and it's really quite comfortable at the low speeds. Here we go. Let's see what it's like with an open road in front of you. It's not as raked out in the front as other Harleys are as well. So it kind of feels like those old cartoons where like Bugs Bunny or the Roadrunner would kind of rev up their legs behind them before they peeled out and went. You kind of feel like the power is coming up behind you. It's not really confidence inspiring in the twisties because of that feeling of the power coming up behind you, but it's maneuverable. We're stuck behind a bus and I can't see around me. Maybe it's coming up to a stop. It went right by the stop. A little rural public transport video here. But you know what, I'm not too concerned that I can't blast down the road in this. One, I'm not that confident in the turns on it. But two, it's just really kind of a boulevard cruiser. I mean, feet out in front of you, a little rumble. It's not bad to be stuck behind the bus, actually. Not too anxious about it. Yeah, straight lines, really good. That power is just coming right up your back. Not uncomfortably, but you can feel it there. Big fat tires on this. They're almost like car tires on it. And you really feel the rubber. I was hitting some loose stuff there and it was shooting rocks off like a lorry would. Yeah, this is it. Kind of just little sweepy turns. Oh, there's a hairpin. Let's see how we do. Yeah, I'm a little hesitant. One, because it's brand spanking new. Two, because it's not mine. And three, because it's a bear. But man, when you get to roll on that throttle, it's so much power. And then you got the wind to contend with. Ooh, oh, it's just, what do they call it? Throaty? It doesn't sound like your traditional, oh shit. This is all gravel. It slid out a little bit there. You're not going to be barreling the turns on it. Sure, there are guys that do, but I'm not overly confident with throwing the back end out and sliding this thing. I kind of feel like I'd be one of those old men who you see videos of where they're leaning into that turn and the next thing you know, they're spinning out on the side. You have that feeling, even with these big fat tires, that if you lean it too low, you're going to be spinning on the side. And again, there's nothing other than a feeling that I'm getting about it. The bike's not giving me any indication that it's not stable or that the tires aren't going to grip, but maybe being so low to the ground, you kind of feel like it's just going to spin. And this loose stuff is just shooting rocks out. I'm hearing this thunk, thunk off the edge of the rubber. Kind of sliding the seat. It's treated a bit like a sport bike. Slide across the seat a little bit on it. Don't plant yourself like you would on a cruiser. You're getting a little more performance out of it. I mean, the seat's suede, so on my biker jeans, I'm sticking to the fabric a little bit, so it's hard to slide across the seat. But if you really lean it and kind of counterbalance it with your body, you're getting a little more performance, and I'm a little more confident in these turns. The vibrations are still there, but I'm not too... Oh, I see. Huh. Yeah, unlike my other bikes, where you're kind of leaning with the bike, this thing wants to stay upright. So I'm really getting more performance from it by leaning my body, but trying to keep the bike upright, if that makes sense. Let's see how we do. Yeah, that's so much better. I think I cracked it. So I'm leaning my body into these turns, but trying to keep the bike upright, kind of running on those rails I was talking about. And I'm getting a lot more confident in the turns. Yeah, instead of leaning the bike down, you lean your body out. Almost like you're a sidecar racer and you're kind of weighting the bike to keep the wheels down. Really nice power. I'm really happy with how refined this feels. I always had the notion that you're paying a lot for a Harley Davidson and you're not really getting the refinement that you deserve. But I think you are. Thinking a little bit more about this bike and the Speedo. I was wondering where it was. I thought maybe this was the Speedo, but I realized this is a rev counter. The Speedo is, I don't know if we can see it. It's about the size of an American dime right there, and it's digital. It's like a very faint gray LCD on a black field, and you have to look down to see how fast you're going. It is absolutely useless. It's quite funny, actually, how useless this display is. I was saying that this bike is the most refined Harley Davidson I've ridden, and I think some of the refinement, some of the design has really taken away from the function of it. I mean, that should be a really great single display, but the priorities of what it's showing, it's 3/4 of it is RPMs. And I don't need to know the RPMs because the engine is telling me the RPMs. That rumble between my legs is telling me the RPMs. This is probably the quintessential bike for feedback. You don't need to know what RPMs you're in on this bike. I do need to know how fast I'm going because this thing could go like a bat out of hell. I was also talking to the owner of this bike, and he was saying how the Harley owners kind of give him the cold shoulder, which I think is kind of funny because Harley owners are notorious for giving anyone who doesn't ride a Harley the cold shoulder. But to ride a Harley, to ride this Harley, to ride one of the most expensive bikes on the market, and to be shunned by your brethren because of the Harley that you've chosen, I think is just really bizarre. He was saying probably it's because of the technology on this bike, the kind of non-traditional design features we were talking about in terms of the headlamp and some of the sporty features on it. The sound, they said that, he was saying that it doesn't sound like a Harley. I had mentioned that when I first got on it, it doesn't sound like a Harley until you get to about 2,000, 2,500 RPMs. But, the Harley riders who will talk to him, keep encouraging him to go to different stage exhausts and air filter modifications to get that telltale Harley sound. And I think it's really funny that you're getting shit from a Harley rider for riding a Harley. Talk about insult to injury. The streamlining of the handlebars is actually quite elegant. I just realized that this is a cable actuated clutch, which really is unique to a Harley. You know, you usually see matching reservoirs, but there's just a cable actuated clutch here, which I'm sure saves weight, which goes back again to that sportiness that they're promoting on this bike. It's definitely a step beyond the Harleys that I've ridden, and a step into the future. I mean, if Harley's going to compete with all these high-performing European and Japanese bikes, they really have to offer something more than the nostalgia and the lifestyle that they've been offering. And I think this is a step in the right direction. Yeah, I think we're learning how to ride this bike. We're getting to know each other, this bike and I. This is a Harley I'd consider, which is saying a lot, saying a lot. The only thing that would talk me out of it is how much this thing is. I'm gonna find out, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't 16 to 20,000 pounds. And I'm not falling in love with it the way I've fallen in love with other bikes. So it was a pretty good 4th of July riding around on this Harley. I got a Harley coming up behind me. It definitely sounds different than the Harley I'm on. And I think that's probably some of the criticism that this owner is getting on this Harley, because this Harley it has its own character. It doesn't have that kind of bitty, spluttering Harley sound. And I think I actually prefer it that way. I think all in all, this is the least Harley Davidson Harley that I've ever ridden, and it's probably the best one I've ever ridden. And I don't get the sensation that something's gonna rattle and fall off, or that this is gonna break down. I have a feeling, I'm hoping for the owner's sake, that this will probably be one of the more reliable Harley Davidsons that have ever been built. It's a good balance. I mean, they're selling this as a muscle bike, kind of the Ford Mustang or Chevy Camaro of motorcycles, which is probably appropriate. I don't think you should discount it for that marketing. I don't think it's that cheesy. Let's say if Harley Davidson didn't build this bike, this would be the closest thing to a Harley Davidson without being a Harley Davidson. And maybe the fact that Harley Davidson did build this bike, I could probably still say that and have it be appropriate. It's the closest Harley Davidson without being a Harley Davidson. You definitely feel like king of the road when you're riding this thing, and it plays the part. And I have to say, I got a lot more nods from bikers that I wouldn't have gotten nods from. So if you're looking for a Harley Davidson, I'd say throw your leg over the Fat Bob, stretch your legs out, and stop taking yourself so seriously. If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.